Welcome back to Make It Mondays, and this week it is Christmas in July. So I got commission to make a Christmas stocking for a child, and when they were given the choice of what colors they wanted, of course they said red and green, but they also said rainbow. So this is going to be the cuff, the heel, and the toe, leg, and foot. So I'm going to get everything turned around, and I'm actually going to get all the way through the cuff with this yarn first before I turn the camera back on. So I'll be back in just a minute. So here's the cuff all the way done. I did knit 2, purl 2. Now it is time to start working on the setup row for the leg. So I'm going to knit 1, and actually I'm going to knit 2, purl 2. I'm going to knit 1, increase 1 left, increase 1 right, knit 1, purl 2, and then knit 2, purl 2. And I'm going to have to redistribute the stitches on the needles as I go. I'll do that off camera a little bit later. Knit 1, and again for the increase 1 left, I'm going into the stitch below, pulling up that stitch and then knitting into it. Then for increase 1 right, pulling up the right leg of the stitch below the one I should be working in and knit into that one, and then knitting the original stitch. And I'm going to work like that all the way around. So these increased stitches are to make it possible for me to do some cable work, or as the child who this is for said, twisty stitches. So this is going to end up being a helix cable eventually, but this is just the setup round. So I will finish this round and I'll be right back. So here I am on the second row, which is going to be my first cable row. So knit 2, purl 2. Then this time around, I'm going to use one of these little stitch markers. I'm going to slip 2 stitches off, hold it to the front, knit 2, slip these 2 back on, and then knit 2. So any kind of cable needle will work. I tend to go for non-traditional cable needles, be it stitch markers or bobby pins. And then any of the places where I did that increase of 2, I will be making that 2/2 front cable. Okay. Now I'm going to go off for a bit and get quite a bit of the way down on this project. I'll be back to show a little bit more of the cable and then how to work the heel a bit later. Be back in a minute. So here I am mostly done with the leg of the stocking. So I am just continuing in pattern, but this is where the right twist and left twist come in. So I am placing the 2 stitches from the cable onto my cable needle, in this case a bobby pin. I'm going to purl 1, slip those stitches back on, and then knit those 2. Then do the exact opposite. So slip the 1 stitch to the back, knit 2, slip it back onto the needle, and purl 1. So I'm going to continue that all the way around. But I am also almost ready to do the heel of the stocking. So this is actually the last cable that's going to happen for half the number of stitches, and then the other half will continue with the 2/2 front cable. But the second half of the stitches will actually have a decrease leading to the heel. So if you give me just a second to finish this round, and one more round, which is just a plain knit where it's knit, purl where it's purl round, I will show you how that works. So as you can see, I did change colors. That was just so that the cable was in the green rather than it kind of showing up in the middle of the next helix. Okay, so I am starting on the heel. So I'm going to hold this yarn to the back, and there's going to be no purling on this side. So I'm going to knit until I get to the cable. And then I'm going to knit those two together and knit those two together. So that is a left leaning increase and a right leaning increase, or sorry, decrease, not increase. And I am putting this onto double pointed needle, or off of double pointed needles onto circulars, so that the heel is a little bit easier for me to work. If I was doing this as a normal size sock, then I would stay on double points and I would just rearrange so that half the stitches were on a set of double pointed needles. But as this is not regular size, it is substantially larger, and these are very short double points. I do love working with them, but they are not conducive to 24 stitches on them. I am instead choosing to do my circular needles for this. So again, knitting through 2. I flip the stitches on what is normally a knit 2 together, but that way the stitches are going in to center rather than both being in the same direction. It's more personal preference than actual necessity. Now, here's going to be the other interesting part. I'm going to start going back and forth, but I'm going back and forth with short rows. I just realized that this last stitch should not have a stitch through it. This should be a wrap and turn. Actually, I'm going to go look at the original. Sorry about that. I am going to do wrap and turn. So I have made numerous stockings before, and it's always a question of how do you do the heel, because there are so many different ways that heels can be worked. This one is going to be a short row heel. It is not going to be a heel flap. It's not going to be an afterthought, which are two of the other ways that I've done heels, frankly. So purling almost all the way across. And when I get to the last stitch, yeah, I know it's pretty hard to see when I'm working everything up at the tips of the needles. Going to pull the yarn to the right side of the work, slip the stitch over, and turn this entire work around. I'm also going to try to not trap yarn where it doesn't belong. Okay? And I'm going to keep doing that same idea, working back and forth, wrapping the last unworked stitch all the way until I've only got 12 stitches on the needle, and then I will be back to show you how I go through and I pick up those wraps. So I am past the wrapping stage and I'm now on to picking up and hiding the wraps. So I'm going to work all the way across till I get to the first wrap, lift that wrap up, place it behind, and then knit through both stitches and then turn. So on the purl side, it's going to take me just a little bit to get over there. It's the same thing, but kind of sort of in reverse. So instead of lifting the wrap to the front, I'm going, yeah. So I'm picking it up off the front, or the right side of the work, pulling it towards me. So then I've got the regular stitch and the wrap, inserting my needle through both, and then purling through both, and then flipping around. So I'm going to do that all the way across. Then I'm going to reconnect the green to go all the way around, working the exact same pattern as I have been working all the way down to the toe, and I'll be back when I get to the toe. So here we are back to the rainbow yarn. So I'm currently done with all of the cable work, including the heel for this heel and cuff. And I'm gonna take the yarn, lay it kind of next to the other tail that's there. And we're going to do the setup round for the toe. So instead of purling where there were purl stitches, I'm just going to knit across. The big difference being when I get to the cable stitches, I am going to knit two together. But other than that, it is just knit all the way around. I did already rearrange the stitches so that it's 12 stitches, or it will be 12 stitches per needle as I go around after the decreases. So once the setup row is all done, I will be back to show you how some of the decreases work. So I've gone all the way around with that setup row and all the way around one more time. So now it's time to work on decreasing for the toe of this stocking. So I'm going to knit one, then do a left leading decrease, then knit all the way across the first two needles, which is in my case the top half of the foot. And then I'll be doing the exact opposite and then repeating the whole thing on the bottom. And this is actually going to continue until instead of 48 stitches, I only have 24 or 12 on the top of the foot and 12 on the bottom. And meanwhile, having all these fun colors in the process. So I'm going to keep going, doing these two decreases. Again, most people don't have to lay the stitches the other way for this, for a right leaning decrease. I do because I twist my stitches. So right leaning decrease, and then a left leaning decrease as its pair on the other side of the foot. Okay. So again, I'm going to continue working this all the way up. It's going to go for quite a ways until I'm down to 12 on the top and 12 on the bottom. And I'm going to rearrange the stitches when I get there, and I will be right back to show you how the two sides get sewn together. So I've got even number of stitches on both sides, and I have my yarn cut and put through a yarn needle. I'm going to put the needle through the back side of the stitch, through the front side of the first stitch on the back, slip it off the needle, and then the back side of the second stitch. In my case, I slipped them both off the needle, but that's just my habit, and I'm working with large enough yarn that it's not a problem. Then in through the front, and then in through the back on the front needle. And it's going to take a couple stitches for this to start looking kind of normal. In through the front, in through the back. If you're looking at written instructions, it will often say purlwise and knitwise. Unfortunately for me, that doesn't mean anything. So I do the what side of the stitch needs to be facing forward, and I match it accordingly. This is also why when I have to include Kitchener stitch as one of the stitches in a pattern, I do not write the instructions. I actually copy them from somewhere else. So again, in through the front, in through the back. And as you can see, it looks like an extra line of stitches because that's what we're doing. We are creating an extra line of stitches connecting the top of the foot and the bottom of the foot. So this will go all the way across, and then the stocking is done, and I'll be right back to show you the full thing. And here we have the final stocking. Now, again, this is a commission for a child, and they got the opportunity to help design it, so this is mostly their idea. But what do you think? Was this something you would want on your Christmas mantle or wherever you hang your stockings, if you hang stockings at all? And I know it's July, but it's Christmas in July. So if you have any interest in having a custom knit stocking for this year, let me know and maybe put in the comments below. And I will see you next time on Make It Mondays. Bye.